Hello and welcome to On Fire here on Daily Mirror. I'm Easwaran Rutnam. Our guest today is a prominent lawyer who will be contesting for the presidency of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. He also played a very critical role as head of the Office on Missing Persons. Saliya Pieris, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Pieris, before we go into what you hope to do at the Bar Association if elected as president, let's look back at your role at the Office on Missing Persons. The Office on Missing Persons was established in March 2018, so at least 2 years ago. I guess the question I have for you is, what do you think the OMP, or do you think the OMP really helped Sri Lanka?
Yes, the background to the establishment of the OMP is from the reports of the previous commissions, including the Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission, the LLRC, which was headed by former Attorney General, Mr. C.R. De Silva, President's Counsel. Now, the various commissions over the years had recommended that there must be a permanent institution to look at the issue of the disappearances and missing in Sri Lanka. Now, Easwaran, you know that this problem is not confined to a particular area in the country. From beginning, even from the 1970s, but more so in the 1980s and thereafter, there have been people who have gone missing during times of conflict. So, you have in the north as well as in the south, there are people who have been missing. So, this office was established in order to address that. The purpose of the office is a humanitarian purpose. It is not it does not do a criminal investigation, but the purpose is to help the families to find what happened to their loved ones. Now, there are similar officers, similar state institutions all over the world, and of course, it is these sort of institution operates over a long period of time, and its results will be seen over several years. But what is important is that this is a domestic institution. It is a state institution. So how it helps Sri Lanka is that because Sri Lanka recognizes that there is an issue to be addressed, where the international community is concerned, they have recognized that the domestic state institution is equipped to do this work.
But the issue, I guess, was that some felt that this commission was detrimental to the country, and you mentioned the fact that the international community accepted this. But I guess most people here are not willing to follow what the international community want to say. They rather go with what the locals want to say.
No, of course. But even where the locals are concerned, the families of the missing, there are thousands of families of the missing, not only in the north or the east, but even in places like Mathura, Hambantota. And these families are looking for some recourse. They are looking for some relief from the state. And because the state, this is a state institution, and the state has accepted the need to look at this issue. And it is good for the Sri Lankan state that the fact that the state recognizes this need, and the state has a mechanism. So then when the state has a mechanism, there is no need for any other mechanism. There is no need for any foreign mechanism. There is no need for a non-government mechanism, because there is a state mechanism is available. And the institution is accountable, is responsible to Parliament. The institution's reports are given to the President of this country. So in that sense, there is nothing detrimental which has happened to the country from this institution.
So during those 2 years, what was the OMP able to achieve?
Yes. So our first task is to establish the office, and so when we started from scratch. There was no staff, no infrastructure, whatever. So starting from recruiting staff, making plans to establish officers, we have established several regional officers. There are families coming in, families who want relief, families who want to tell their story, who want to speak to our officers. There are families in need of advice, support. So in those terms, we have interacted with families. We had a series of consultations with families of the missing from various parts of the country. We have established officers both in the north, the east and the south, and in that way we have established officers we have recruited staff, we have interacted with families, we have commenced we had issued an interim report, issued it to the President of Sri Lanka, making certain recommendations in respect of relief to the families, and in that way, we have started to act according to what previous commissions, including the LLRC, have recommended.
So were those recommendations implemented?
Well, some of the recommendations were being implemented. Some, of course, are yet to be implemented. But all recommendations have been given to the government, to the President of Sri Lanka, and to the government of Sri Lanka.
And there were reports at times that the OMP was not really receiving sufficient funds to carry out its work effectively.
No, I think there were sufficient funds allocated. But in Sri Lanka, the problem is not the allocation of funds, but if you want to really implement something, there is quite a lot of red tape, bureaucratic red tape, even for recruitment of staff, even where you want to prepare a scheme of recruitment, opening of offices, there is quite a bit of procedures. So when you go through those procedures, the funds which are allocated really cannot be expended totally. So I would not say there was certainly there was no lack of funds, but on the whole, because the state machinery is such, the procedures are such, establishing an office from scratch takes a long time, and so that has been one of the hindrances for our office.
Now, on the subject of funds, there were some allegations and some reports with regards to how much you were being paid as head of the OMP. Some said you got a very big package.
Not at all. That's absolute falsehood. The allowances of the members of the Office on Missing Persons is decided by Parliament. It's upon a cabinet resolution, and thereafter it is put to Parliament. And this is all in the public domain. The allowances which I and my fellow commissioners draw is equivalent to what was drawn by the members of other commissions, the chairperson and members of other commissions. In fact, what we at present draw is something less than what is presently being drawn by the chairperson and members of the other commission. So this is all Goebbelsian propaganda to try to say that that we have drawn a large amount in excess of what is ordinarily paid. All allowances which are paid were decided by the cabinet and decided upon by Parliament with the approval of the relevant authorities.
Now, we all know the current administration, before they came to office, the concerns they had about the OMP and so on and so forth. Since the November elections, what has been happening with the OMP?
Well, we have continued to function. Of course, earlier we were under the gazetted under the Ministry of National Reconciliation. Now, since November, we have been gazetted under the Ministry of Justice, and we continue with our functions. Of course, we have not been able to recruit new staff due to various constraints arising from there being an election period, and thereafter, of course, due to the coronavirus for several months. So, in that sense, our operations are scaled down, but we continue as usual.
But you know, the feeling that most people have had in the past about commissions and committees, you know, they come, they go, and, you know, very little is seen later on. And when the OMP was established as well, most families of the missing had a lot of doubts about it. And now it seems that, you know, their doubts are going to be confirmed to a certain extent, because we hear that the OMP might not really go the full course. What sort of assurance, I mean, I know you're on your way out, but what sort of assurance, or at least how would you comment to these concerns being raised about the OMP?
The families of the missing have always been skeptical about state institutions, and that is the reality. The families of the missing feel there have been commission after commission. In fact, I think there have been almost 11 commissions, but they feel that their questions have not been answered, and that is there. There is deep skepticism of state institutions. But having said that, during the 2 years, we have managed to engage with thousands of families. And there are families, despite their skepticism, who have thought it fit to come to us to engage with us in different ways. We were involved in certain issues, for instance, related to the Mannar mass graves, and we intervened in that case. We assisted in the provision of technical expertise and also funding. And in that way, we have quietly tried to gain the confidence of the families all over the country. And Easwaran, I must tell you, these families belong to all communities. There are Sinhalese, there are Tamils, there are Muslims, and what is not known or what is ignored is among the missing in Sri Lanka, there are the families of the missing in action of the armed forces. And those families also have been coming to us.
So do you all have details of the people who are actually missing? There was talk of a list back then.
Yes,
as well?
of course. We have details of the complaints, and in fact, there is a list of the complaints which is being prepared. It is a tedious process. But that is part of our statutory duty to prepare a register, and that process also continues.
So what would be the next step? I mean, in the sense like, okay, you have a list, you've done a lot of work, you've met families and and so on and so forth. What is supposed to be the next step?
So ideally, the ultimate objective of institutions such as the OMP is to try to tell the families what happened and what are the circumstances in which their loved one went missing, if that is possible. Of course, the reality is not in any institution throughout the world, not all families will be able to find the answers. But establishing this sort of institution also, in a sense, recognizes the need of those families. It recognizes that there was an issue. I recently met quite a senior lawyer who holds a quite important office, and he was telling me how his own brother had disappeared during the insurgency of 1987 to 89. And he said how his father, who was a senior academic, was devastated by that. That is the reality. I had, 1.5 years ago, a certain lady came to and met me from Yatiantota. She was 76 years. Her husband went missing during the 83 July riots in Colombo at a temple, at a Kovi. And this lady, 35 years later, heard about the OMP on radio and came and met me. And what she said was, I am still wearing the red coat too. And I want to know for certain whether my husband is dead. If my husband is dead, I have to remove this coat too and give him an almsgiving.
But if you are not an investigative body, how would you find out that if this person's husband is dead or not?
The OMP does not conduct a criminal investigation.
Okay.
The act is very clear. Whatever investigations which are conducted by the OMP would not lead to any criminal prosecution. Evidence gathered by the OMP cannot be used for a criminal or a civil action in a court of law. So its purpose is solely humanitarian. But
then doesn't that make the OMP rather weak?
Well, no, there are so many institutions in other countries also similarly, such as this. So of course, so as you asked, what is the next step? Ideally, the OMP must have an investigative team which will look at the circumstances and inform the families of what would happen. But institutions such as this, it takes time not only to establish its work, takes time. If you look at in many other countries, there are similar institutions. Even in the United Kingdom, there is an institution in respect of Northern Ireland. Of course, the numbers are much smaller, but in Cyprus there is. In other parts of the world, there are similar institutions. So the idea is that you try to help the families, because the families want to know, if a person is dead, there is a closure. But when a person is missing and the family does not know what happened, there is always this nagging doubt in one's mind as to what has happened. So and this same doubt is there among families in the south also. When we opened an office in Mathura, several hundred of families of the missing came from Mathura and Hambantota to the office. And so this is the challenge. So of course the work of a similar institution such as the OMP is long term, and its success has to be judged over many years.
Now, there are concerns if the OMP will actually go the full run. As a lawyer, I mean, what is your opinion? What can the OMP just be, can the operations be stopped?
Well, the law, there is a law which has been enacted. The parliament can repeal a law which it has passed. In a legal sense, that is what can be done. Of course, in a very practical sense, there may be many other considerations which have to be taken into account by any state institution. But of course, for an institution such as this, if it is to continue in its work, there is the support of the state which is needed.
And so now you resigned as the head of the OMP and you're contesting for the presidency of the Bar Association. Why do you think the Bar Association or the Bar needs a new leader?
Well, every 2 years there is the Bar does elect a new president.
But why do they need your leadership?
Yes, why I say they need my leadership is my position is that I have always taken a position on issues. I stand very strongly on issues of rule of law, on the independence of the judiciary. I also stand for that the bar must uplift the juniors in the profession, and I am deeply committed to uplifting the juniors in the profession who are struggling to come up with the profession. I also believe that strongly that the bar must secure the rights of its members. So whether the rights of its members vis-a-vis the police, the rights of its members vis-a-vis the prisoners, vis-a-vis the courts, I believe the bar must be strong. And leadership means taking a position. Leadership is not being wishy-washy, not taking a position, just being equivocal and just waiting to see what happens. That is not leadership. Leadership is taking a position, but a considered position. I also believe the bar must be independent. It must be independent politically. Each of us might have our own political views, but when it comes to the bar, we keep aside those political views and see what are the best interests of the bar. And that is the position I have right along taken. Over the last 28 years, I can say that I have always taken an independent position. I believe that the bar must not be political, but the bar must be active, must be actively involved and to achieve the objectives of the bar.
But you have been seen by many as this NGO activist, particularly I guess because of your role at the OMP. How will that affect your campaign?
Actually, that again, as I said, is part of this Goebbelsian propaganda which is being spread. I have not been an NGO activist. I have been a lawyer, and it is as a lawyer that I have taken up causes. It is in that capacity. I have not profited I have not earned from NGOs. So that is absolutely false. The OMP, Office on Missing Persons, is not a non-government organization. It is a state institution. My appointment was by the President of Sri Lanka. So certainly it is some people, interested persons, after this election was declared, are trying to portray me in that light, which is not at all true. I have not been involved in that way. I have not been an activist in that sense, but certainly as a lawyer, I have taken up causes, and I have fearlessly taken up causes of people who have been subject to even unlawful killings, people whose rights have been violated, in respect of the independence of the judiciary. I have taken up positions. By that that has been my position.
You mentioned about the independence of the judiciary, and some feel that there are a bit few doubts if the judiciary is actually independent or not. What is your opinion?
Well, I think the judiciary, there are many constitutional provisions safeguarding the independence of the judiciary. But as a particular former Chief Justice Neville Samarakot said, it is ultimately for each and every judge to maintain his independence. And we have had very independent judges who have taken up fearless positions, Of course, independence also does not mean always going against the state either. Independence is you are not subject to outside pressures. You deal things according to law. I have the greatest confidence in judiciary of this country. But they have to be strengthened. The judiciary has to be strengthened. Their independence has to be fortified from outside attacks. And that is where the bar comes in. The legal profession, sometimes the judiciary does not have a voice. The judiciary sometimes can't express things. That is where the bar must come in and protect the judiciary. Of course, the judiciary must also be accountable. As in all other countries, we need an independent and an accountable judiciary.
But there are concerns that the bar itself is also not independent.
The bar, where the bar is concerned, I say the history of the bar has been that it has exercised independence. But we must be wary about the bar being politicized. We must be careful of that, because that is why I said it is very important that whatever our political views may be, that we keep those aside, and in respect of the bar, we act independently, keeping in mind the objectives of the bar, keeping in mind the provisions of the Constitution relating to rule of law, independence of the judiciary, fundamental rights. Those have to be kept in mind.
But do you think the bar also need, I mean, most people feel that the bar has been very silent on most issues. You said that, you want to make it more effective, but what more can you do to make sure that the Bar Association actually gains more respect of the public?
Yeah, I think the bar needs to take positions on issues. And the bar has been taking positions on issues. If you look at the history of the bar from 1975 onwards, whenever there has been something crucial, the bar has fearlessly taken up position. The most recent example would be the 2012 impeachment of the Chief Justice. The bar took a very, and that was irrespective of party politics. Whatever people's party political views were, people gathered together for a common cause, that is to protect the independence of the judiciary. So not to protect the personality who held the office of the Chief Justice, but to protect that office. And the bar has taken, historically the bar has taken a strong position. And I believe we must build on that. We must build on that. This is one of the largest professional bodies, and it is necessary that we build on that. So my view is the bar need not be politicized. You might have your respective political views. You must be able to take an objective, independent stand. But at the same time, the bar must also be able to work with the people who hold office, like the Minister of Justice. You must be able to work with them to achieve objectives which are needed. So, for example, like such as laws delays, in court infrastructure, lawyers, officers, development of new processes to expedite litigation. All those, I think the bar must actively assist. Even in respect of legislation, I think it is important for the bar, when laws are passed, or before laws are passed, to study the bills, to study the law, and give the government its views, so that then you find certain things. Otherwise, what happens is, after laws are passed, you find there are issues which are problematic. So rather than that, before a law is passed, the bar should have a mechanism where important laws are looked at. So, for instance, if there is an amendment to the Civil Procedure Code or the Criminal Procedure Code, or, for example, the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, the bar must be able to look at those objectively and come up with a position.
Mr. Pieris, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for joining us on Fire.
Thank you.